The 7-step goal setting process. Number 1, decide exactly what you want. Be specific. This is really important. Decide exactly what you want and be specific. It has to be so clear a child could understand it. Second of all, write it down and make it measurable. A goal that is not in writing is not a goal at all. In fact, if you were just to do number 1, number 2, and number 3, set a deadline and set sub-deadlines if necessary. Basic rule is that there are no unrealistic goals, there are merely unrealistic timelines, unrealistic deadlines. So if you set a goal and you don't achieve it by the deadline, what do? Set another deadline. Just move it back. Obviously, you misjudged. Remember, it's just a guesstimate of when you can achieve the goal. However, with a deadline, half the time you'll achieve it before the deadline. Always when I write down a goal, which I do every day, I say I achieved this goal by this date. So in other words, it's achieved anywhere between now and then. I don't say at the date, but by this date or before this date. But by is my favorite word. I achieve it by June 30th, 2011. I achieve it by December 31st, 2011. Achieve this goal by. And if all you did was this, decide what you want, write it down, and set a deadline, it will change your life forever. I've had people who've just staggered at the difference it made in their lives to write these goals down and just set a deadline on them. But that's not enough. Number 4 is to determine the obstacles that you'll have to overcome to achieve the goal. Remember, the question that we ask is, why aren't you already at the goal? If you want to earn twice as much, why aren't you already earning twice as much? What's the reason? What's holding you back? What's the constraint or the obstacle that's stopping you? Now, in 80% of cases, the 80-20 rule applies here. In 80% of cases, the obstacles between you and your goals are inside you. They're internal. They're not on the outside. So the mark of the superior person when they have a problem is they always say, what is it in me that's holding me back? What is it in me that's holding me back? Is it a lack of discipline, lack of time management, lack of a skill, lack of the ability to perform a particular area? What is it in me that's holding me back? And when you start with yourself, 80% of the time you'll say, well, this is my great problem. I have a book called Eat That Frog, which goes 21 great ways to stop procrastinating and get things done faster. It's based on 30 years of research into time management condensed into a little book. How many people have read that book? It's a good book? It's a life. It transforms people's lives because the number one obstacle in many cases is procrastination, and it shows you how to develop the habit of getting on with it and starting your most important task and just getting it done. And when you get into the habit of determining your most important task and then just doing it, your whole life explodes. Because after that, you start to get everything done. And you start to get more and more done. And not only that, you feel happy. As you do important tasks, you feel happy. Your self-esteem goes up. You have more energy. Your self-confidence goes up. You're motivated to do more things. So one little problem, procrastinating. People say, well, it's procrastination is what holds me back. It's taking the first step. Well, if you can overcome that, which is a learnable skill, you learn to procrastinate, by the way, by default. So what you do is you say, well, I'm going to overcome procrastination. And don't say I'm going to do it tomorrow or next week. I'm going to take a year, and by the end of the year, I'm going to be one of the best time managers and result getters in the world. Just give yourself a year and work on it every day. And I can promise you, 3, 6, 9, 12 months from now, you're going to be a production powerhouse. You're going to be the most productive person in your industry. You're going to be getting so much done. So determine the obstacles. Now, the next is determine the additional knowledge and skills that you will require. And remember, to achieve a goal that you've never achieved before, you will have to develop skills that you've never had before. You'll have to do things that you've never done before. So what are they? And here's the great breakthrough thought that changed my life at the age of 23, is that all business skills are learnable. You can learn any skill you need to learn, whether it's prospecting, presenting, closing, hiring, borrowing money, building businesses, marketing. You can learn any skill you need to learn. They're all just learnable skills. They're just laying there. But the point is that you can learn this stuff. Number 6, determine the people whose help and cooperation you will require. Who are they? Whose help and cooperation you will require. And then assemble all these details into a plan, organize the plan, and get started. Now, a plan is merely a list. It's a list of everything that you can think of that you could possibly do to achieve the goal. And then you organize the list by priority, what should you do first, and sequence, what should you do second. I had a gentleman in my course in Sydney, Australia, and he had started off a business when he was about 20, 21. He worked his head off for 7 or 8 years. He's now 28, 29. He had a very successful business. But now he realized his whole childhood was gone. All of his friends had gone off and traveled around the world and so on. And he wanted to travel. I mean, he wanted to go to Europe and he wanted to visit Paris. And he had a good business. He'd been trying to sell his business for 2 years. And I said to him, he said, tell me, what can I do? How can I sell my business? I said, well, have you ever read a book on how to sell a business? He said, are there books on this subject? I said, of course, there's thousands and thousands of businesses that are sold every year, and there's experts who help people buy and sell business, and they've written books on it. As a matter of fact, any bookstore has a section in the business section on small businesses, and one of the subjects is how to buy or sell a business. The difference between successful, happy people and unsuccessful, unhappy people is successful, happy people have clear values. They know what's important to them, and they know what's important to them in order. For example, my highest value has always been my family. No matter how hard I work, I never have budged from that. My family always takes precedence over everything else. There's never even a question. No finance, no work, no travel, no anything else. And when you're absolutely clear about what your values are and in order, then it's easy to make decisions because that's what's right or wrong for you. And each person can have their own values as long as they are your true values. Now, how do you tell what your true values are? We could spend a whole afternoon on this, but what do we tell who are true values? Well, how do we tell our true values? Well, the answer, it is only by what you do under pressure. You can always tell what your values truly are by what you do under pressure. When you have to make a choice between one or another, you always choose what is most valuable to you. You always choose what is most important to you. So you can think about when I was under pressure, what did I do? Did I stay at the office all night and miss my child's graduation or football game or recital? Well, then what I proved to myself under pressure was that my job is more important than my family. So you can always tell when you're forced to choose what your values are. And sometimes by just simply changing your values and saying, no, from now on, I will always make this choice, you become a different person. You become a different person. And when you live consistent with your values, your self-esteem goes up, your self-confidence goes up, your self-image improves, you feel happier, more positive about yourself. A good friend of mine once said that all problems in life can be solved by a return to your values, by going back to what was true for you. The greatest of all human values, of course, is integrity. But what I've learned about integrity is the overarching value that guarantees all the others. Integrity means that you live consistent with all your other values. Is you always tell the truth, you always live in truth, you always speak the truth, and whenever you deviate from your own personal integrity, you'll always feel uncomfortable, frustrated, angry, and so on. So when you go back to the main value in living in truth, for you, you start to feel happy again, and everything starts to flow. So here's the third question, is what would you do, how would you spend your time if you learned today that you only had 6 months left to live? Imagine the doctor came to you with the final assessment and said, you're going to enjoy fabulous health for 180 days, and on the 181st day, because of a terminal illness, you'll drop stone dead. What would you do in your last 5 or 6 months? What would you spend your time on if you only had 6 months left to live? Now this is another values question. This question asks you what is really important to you in life. And you know the old joke is nobody in answering that question would write down, I'd like to spend more time at the office. When you answer this question, there's not a single material goal that appears. No money, no cars, no homes, nothing. When you write the answer to this question, they all have to do with your relationships and with your spiritual development. They have to do with the people that you care about and care about the most. And so it's really important that you be clear that if you only had 6 months to live, what would you do? And I ask these questions of myself all the time, and then I just make sure that I'm living my life in harmony with what my answers are. I'm not going to take a chance of a plane flying into a mountain and saying, darn, I wish I'd known this was going to happen so I could have spent my time differently. So it's really important. And then integrity requires that you live consistent with what you would do if you only had 6 months left to live. And this brings us to question number 4, is imagine you won $20 million tax-free, and at the same time you found that you only had 10 years left to live. This is a great question that comes from Stanford University, by the way, is what would you change or do differently for your last 10 years? Let's say you had to work at something. You couldn't just go and sit and loll around. You had to be busy at something. How would you spend your last 10 years? If you had $20 million. Go ahead, write the first 3 things you can think of. Now here's the point. is this question simply asks is what would you do if you had no fear of failure at all? If you had all the money you needed, so you had no fear of failure at all, you could do anything you want. Many people will write down, I'd quit my job so fast they wouldn't even see me leaving. I mean, and what that means is that you're in the wrong job. If you would quit your current job if you had enough money, which many people would do, it means that you're actually wasting your life. As you're actually stuck in there, and you're probably stuck in there because you don't have enough financial reserves. And so you're caught in a bind, if you will. You're caught in a vice, doing something you dislike because you can't afford to leave it. So when you ask this question, it'll tell you what you really should be doing with your life. You'd start a business, you'd run for public office, you would travel, you'd do things for your family. What would you do if you had $20 million? And that will tell you what you would do if you had no fear of failure at all. It's a great question to ask. And whatever you would do as an answer to this is possible for you. It may not be possible tomorrow, but it's possible for you sooner or later. So what you do is you say, well, this is what I would really like to do. If I had all the money I needed, this is what I'd like to do. Now, how can you begin adjusting your life so you do that? People often say, well, I want to start my own business, so I wouldn't have to be answerable to anybody, but I don't have enough money. Well, nobody has any money. There's 1,001 businesses you can start for less than $100. There's a book on the book stands. Go and buy the book. 1,001 businesses you can start for less than $100. You can start a business out of your home with a computer. You can start it with going to scrap meets. You can start it with services. You can start it with what you cannot imagine. So don't say I don't have any money. If you don't have $100, well, okay. So number 5, what have you always wanted to do but been afraid to attempt? What have you always wanted to do but been afraid to attempt? You've admired other people who've done it. You've looked up to other people who've done it. You wished you could do that sort of a thing. Bungee jumping, deep sea diving, starting a business, running for office, writing a book, getting it published, becoming a public speaker, becoming a singer. What have you always wanted to do but been afraid to try it? Leadership and self-discipline go hand in hand. It is not possible to imagine an effective leader who lacks self-discipline, willpower, self-control, and self-mastery. The overarching characteristic of a leader is that he is in complete control of himself and every situation. There's seldom a time in history when leaders were so needed and so much in demand as today. We need leaders at every level of society, both in the profit and nonprofit sectors. We need leaders in our families, businesses, places of worship, and community organizations, and especially in politics. We need men and women who take their responsibilities seriously and are willing to step forward to take command of the situation. Fortunately, leadership is learnable. Leaders are developed, usually self-developed, over time through hard work, experience, and training. As Peter Drucker once said, there may be natural-born leaders, but there are so few of them that they make no difference in the great scheme of things. There are 4 stages of development in your career in business. You progress through 4 levels of activity and entertainment. First, you start off as an employee with limited knowledge and experience. Then, as you grow, learn and develop the ability to get results, you evolve upward and become a supervisor with responsibility for the performance and results of other people. As you continue to move up the scale of supervision, improving your ability to get things done through others from directly overseeing the work of employees, you become a manager, someone who assigns work to people with demonstrated competence in certain areas. Managers have a larger view, and this comes with greater responsibilities. As you move up the scale of management, becoming more knowledgeable and effective in getting more and better results from more and different people, you reach the highest level, that of a leader. At this stage, you are responsible for determining what is to be done rather than how it is to be done. It is said that some leaders are made, some are born, and some people have leadership thrust upon them. Leaders emerge or are promoted to deal with a situation requiring leadership ability. In its simplest terms, the role of the leader is to take responsibility for results. The primary reason that people are promoted into increasingly higher levels of leadership is that they demonstrate the ability to get the required results at each level
The ongoing question of the leader is always, what results are expected of me? Clarity is essential. The main reason that some people are not promoted into greater leadership positions, or perhaps they're even fired, is because of failure to execute. They do not do the most important jobs expected of them, nor do they get the results demanded of them. Leaders have vision. The first quality of leadership, based on 3,300 studies of leaders reviewed by James McPherson, is the quality of vision. Leaders have vision. They have the ability to project forward into the future and develop a clear picture of where they want their organizations to go. They then have the ability to share this vision with others and gain others' commitment to make this vision a reality. You become a leader when you accept responsibility for results. You become a leader when you begin to think, act, and talk like a leader. You become a leader when you develop a vision for yourself and for your company, your life, or your area of responsibility. There are hundreds of books written about leadership and the importance of vision, yet they can be boiled down to a single principle. A military leader has a vision of victory from which he never deviates. A business leader has a vision of success, for the business leader has a vision of success for the business based on excellent performance too, which he or she is completely committed. A leader is a standard bearer. The leader sets the standard for the organization or the department. It is not possible for anyone in the organization to have a clear vision or to aspire to a higher standard of excellence than the leader. For this reason, the leader is the role model, the one who sets the tone and the morale for everyone in the organization. The personality and influence of the leader affect everyone below him in the company, organization, or department. You cannot raise morale in a business. It filters down from the top, from the leader. The behavior of the leader influences and affects the behavior of everyone else. If the leader is positive, confident, and upbeat, everyone in the organization will be influenced by his behavior and will be more confident, positive, and upbeat as well. Walk the talk. When you become a leader, you must discipline yourself to be leader. Like, you must walk, talk, and act the part of a leader. You become a different person with different responsibilities than a manager. When you are working your way up, you are a part of the staff or the sales team. When you become a manager, you are part of management. This means that when you are part of the staff, your orientation is upward and sideways. But when you become a leader, your orientation is downward toward all the people for whom you are responsible. Perhaps the most important behavior of a leader is for you to discipline yourself to be a role model. Imagine that everyone is watching you and patterning everything they do and say based on your behavior. When you become a leader, you no longer have the luxury to let it all hang out. From the time you are promoted into leadership, you have a special responsibility to discipline and control your words and behaviors in such a way that you bring about the very best possible results for your organization and for other people. Set the standards. The leader sets the standards for the organization's behavior, quality of work, personal organization, time management, and appearance. In excellent organizations, the leader is the person who everyone looks up to and wants to emulate. In most cases, the leader works harder than others in the company. The leader appears to be more committed, more determined, more courageous, more visionary, and more persistent than anyone else. The leader sets a tone that everyone wants to emulate. The leader also sets the standard for how people are treated in the organization. When a leader greets people with courtesy, consideration, and concern, it quickly becomes known that these are the standards to which others must adhere. Set values and principles. In addition to a clear vision for the organization, the leader must have a set of values and organizing principles that guide behavior in decision-making. Everyone must know what the leader and the company stand for and believe in. The job of the leader, then, is to articulate this vision of excellent performance within the constraints of high ethical standards at all times. He or she must walk the talk and live the values and behaviors he or she teaches. The very best standard for a leader is the golden rule. Treat others as you would have them do unto you. For example, when Jack Welch was the president of General Electric, he encouraged managers to treat each employee as if that employee might be promoted over his head sometime in the future, and he might find himself working under the person who is now working below him. This way of thinking assured that managers treated their staff with a high degree of respect and courtesy. 7 principles of leadership. To be an effective leader, there are 7 principles you must incorporate into your leadership behavior and activities. 1. Clarity. This is perhaps your most important responsibility. You must be absolutely clear about who you are and what you stand for. You must be absolutely clear about your vision and where you want to lead your people. You must be absolutely clear about the goals and objectives of the organization and how they are to be achieved. Especially, you must be absolutely clear about the values, mission, and purpose of the organization and what it stands for. Everyone around you and below you must know exactly why they are doing what they do and what their company has been formed to accomplish. 2. Competence. As the leader, you must set a standard of excellent performance for the organization as well as for every person and function in the company. Your goal must be for your company to be as good or better than your very best competitor. You must be continually seeking ways to improve the quality of your product and services to your customers. 3. Commitment. The leader is absolutely committed to the success of the organization and believes completely that this organization is the best in the business or will be the best in the future. This passionate commitment to the organization and to success and achievement motivates and inspires people to do their best work and put their whole hearts into their jobs. 4. Constraints. The job of the leader is to identify the constraints or limiting factors that set the speed at which the company achieves its most important goals of revenue and profitability. The leader then allocates people and resources to alleviate those constraints and remove the obstacles so it can perform as one of the best in the business. 5. Creativity. The leader is open to new ideas of all kinds and from all sources. The leader is continually encouraging people to find faster, better, cheaper, and easier ways to produce excellent products and services and to take better care of customers. 6. Continuous learning. The leader is personally committed to reading, listening, and upgrading his or her personal knowledge and skills as an executive. The leader should attend additional seminars and courses to improve his or her skills and abilities. At the same time, the leader encourages everyone in the organization to learn and grow as a normal and natural part of business life. The leader provides time and resources for training and development. The leader knows that the best companies have the best trained people. The second best companies have the second best trained people, and the third best companies have the least trained people and are on their way out of business. 7. Consistency. The leader has the self-discipline to be consistent, dependable, reliable, calm, and predictable in all situations. One of the great comforts of business life is for an employee to know that the leader is completely consistent and reliable. An effective leader does not change from day to day. The leader is not blown in the wind by each new situation, problem, or emergency that arises. Instead, the leader is calm, positive, and confident, especially under pressure, the inevitable crisis. The only thing that is inevitable in the life of the leader is the crisis. When you rise to a position of leadership, you will experience crises repeatedly, crises that are unpredictable, unbidden, and often capable of seriously damaging the organization. It is in the crisis that the leader demonstrates his competence. In times of crisis, the leader becomes calm, cool, objective, and completely in control. The leader asks questions and gathers information. The leader assesses the situation accurately and makes whatever decisions are necessary to minimize the damage or cut the losses. Great leaders discipline themselves to keep their fears and misgivings private. They do not share their concerns with their staffs, knowing that this can cause confusion and loss of morale. Instead, the leader asks a lot of questions, probes deeply into a situation so that he or she understands it thoroughly, and keeps his or her feelings private. As far as the members of the organization are concerned, the leader is always calm, positive, relaxed, and in complete control, no matter what is happening. Self-control and leadership. There's a direct relationship between your ability to discipline yourself and your readiness to lead. It is only when you prove to others that you are in complete control of yourself that they develop the confidence to put you in a leadership position and keep you there. The leader realizes that everything he says to or about another person is magnified. The leader therefore praises and encourages people both in their presence and when they are not around. He never says anything negative that could be misinterpreted or that could demotivate or offend another person. If he has problems with someone, he addresses them privately, out of sight and earshot of anyone else. Leadership qualities. Leaders discipline themselves to plan, prepare, organize, and check every detail. They take nothing for granted. They ask questions to ensure that they have a complete understanding of a situation, problem, or difficulty. Great leaders act as if they own the entire company. They accept a high level of personal responsibility. The leader never complains, makes excuses, or blames others for problems. Leaders are intensely action-oriented. They gather information carefully and they make the decisions that are necessary. They set measures and standards and hold others to them. They insist that the job be done quickly and well. Leaders rise to the top. Leaders rise to the top of an organization as cream rises in milk. When you have complete responsibility for getting results, concentrate single-mindedly on completing your most important tasks, continually upgrade your knowledge and skills, as well as your ability to contribute value to your company. Treat other people with kindness and consideration. You urge as a natural leader as you demonstrate your ability to make an increasingly valuable contribution to your organization. People above, below, and on both sides of you will want you to be promoted into leadership and will support you when you reach that position. One of your primary aims in life is to walk, talk, act, and treat others as a leader would. Eventually, your position will be equal to your performance.
The key is time. Time is precious. Now, let me give you Bill Bailey's description of time. Life is not just the passing of time. Life is a collection of experiences, their frequency and their intensity. Life is not just watching the clock tick away. Life is a collection of experiences, their intensity, their frequency. Whatever the span of your life turns out to be, here's what you want to fill it up with. Experiences and the intensity of those experiences. But now let's talk about the management of time. When should you start the day? As soon as you have it finished, plan the day the best you can, leaving plenty of room for improvising and surprises and all the stuff that happens during the course of the day. But if you've planned a good, productive day, now you start that day. You can't believe how much more valuable your time will be. Don't start the day until you have it finished. Now here's the next one. Don't start the week until you've had it finished. To lay out a week is a pretty good challenge. Next, don't start the month until you have it finished. The places to go, the people to see, the productivity, the sales, the customers, the development, and all the rest of what you want to accomplish during the course of 30 days. Don't start the month till it's finished. And then here's the big one. This is really challenging. Don't start the year until you have it finished to the best of your ability. It can't be finished minute by minute. But in terms of the sweep of what you want to accomplish, make sure that that's set and ready to go by the time January 1st rolls around, approaches to the management of time. Here's the first one. Ignore the subject to mean that's good advice. Don't let anything overly bug you. Remember, you don't have to do anything. Someone said, well, I got to get a handle on my time. The answer is no, you don't. If you want to let it all go, you can let it all go. This is good advice. Somebody says you ought, you ought. To jot this down, nor all the you oughts, or you shoulds, only if they're giving general information. It's better to say, if you're teaching, we should, not you should. Then you let me listen in without it being too confrontational. If everyone did this, see, that would be great. And then you give a person a chance to choose to do it or not to do it. But when you start with a you oughts, now see, if I don't, now we've got some tension and maybe some problems. So you ought to always create problems. When you're talking to your kids, you say, no, if kids would do this, but not always saying if you did this, life would be better. But if kids did this, life would be better. It's like making a little talk and letting them listen in, and then it's a little less confrontational. It gives us a choice. In one of my seminars, here's what I teach: all life forms strive to the max of their potential, except human beings. How tall will a tree grow? As tall as it possibly can. You never heard of a tree growing half as high as it could? No, trees don't grow half. A tree drives its roots as deep as it can, reaches as high as it can, produces every leaf it can, every fruit it can, to the max. Every life form strives to the max, except human beings. Now, why not human beings? Jot this down. You've been given a dignity of choice. You're not a robot. You don't have to repeat this year the same as last year. You can tear up last year's plan, develop a new plan. So the dignity of being a human being. Here's the choice on being a human being. To be part of all we were meant to be, or to strive for all, or half or part, or some. A choice is up to you to develop 1 skill or 10 skills. Someone says, well, I'd be happy with just 1 more language. Well, some say, hey, I'm going to learn 6 or 7. And this is all a matter of choice. And when someone says, no, you ought to learn 4, you've got to resist all that, because this is personal dignity. And you don't want to destroy someone's dignity by doing all the oughts. And they feel reluctant to do it. Now we've got problems. So if you want to just ignore this subject on time management, now here's the next one. Step down to something easier. The guy's in sales and he says, oh, I want to own the company. Finally, he owns the company, but now he's got no time to play golf. He said, when I was in sales, I was making big money playing golf 3 days a week. Heck with us owning something, heck with managing. My life was never my own after I started to manage. I'm going back to sales. See, this is the key. If you're getting too pressed, you might consider stepping down to something with a little easier time pressure. Next key to time management, that's working longer and harder. But see, there's a limit to that. I almost lost my health the first year. I went so crazy about personal development and achievement. I just went bonkers. You know, I told you I was skinny. By the end of that first year, I was a walking shadow. And then it suddenly occurred to me, what if I got rich and too ill to spend it? I mean, that was a shocker. So I started developing a little more reasonably, because I said, if 12 hours won't do it, I'll work 14. If that won't do it, I'll work 18. I mean, how many hours it takes? And sure enough, it cost me too much. So see, working longer and harder for some might be appropriate. You know, if you're just sitting around not doing that much. This might be good, work longer and harder. But you can only work so hard. Not to work harder, but smarter. And when you've worked as hard as you can, doing the best you can in terms of physical output in a reasonable time. Now here's the ultimate in the management of time, and that is you simply become more skillful. When I first got into sales, you know, I was around people that could get, 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10. And when I first started, I could only get 1 out of 10. I worked around the clock, so that I would make up in numbers what I lacked in skill. That's good in sales. You've got to jot that down. When you're new, you make up in numbers what you lack in skill. Now, when you become more skillful, the numbers can go down, because now your persuasive ability and all of that is so high that you don't need to put as many numbers out. But at first, if you want to compete or if you want to really get good, you've got to put in the numbers. But if you get more from yourself, develop more yourself, now the time management becomes an easier task. Now, here's the next thing. Either you run the project or it runs you. I found out when you start something at first, you're in charge. All of a sudden, a year later, it's in charge. Some of the companies I started, I'm telling you, I'm in control. A couple of years later, I'm out of control. At first, I've got it on the run. 2 years later, it's got me on the run. Haven't got enough time, I'm dizzy with trying to get it all done. So here's part of the key, and that's to get in charge. Say, I'm going to take charge of my health, take charge of your time, take charge of your resources, which we're going to talk about next. You're the one that's responsible for it. It's not a requirement of society that you not have a heart attack to take care of your family. That's not a requirement of society. But you must make it a requirement of yourself. Society doesn't require that you build a financial wall around your family. Nothing can get through. That's not a requirement of society. It's a requirement you impose on yourself. To build a financial wall around your family, nothing can get through. So impose on yourself the self-development of being in charge, taking charge of your life and your health and your future and your responsibilities and all the rest. Next, reasonable time is enough time to achieve all of your goals. Reasonable time is enough time. I had to learn that. Reasonable time is enough time. Here's why. It's not the hours you put in, it's what you put in the hours. If you start depositing greater ideas into the hours you've got, later than now, I'm telling you later you can't believe the productivity that will flow, the ideas you can't think of now. A year from now, they'll start to flow. And when you deposit those ideas in the hours you've got, productivity multiplies by 2, 3, 5, 2. Next time, management essential. We've already covered the first one, a written set of goals, and then do priorities on your goals. What's important this month? Here's the next one. Often review. Just go over your goals to make sure that your list is working for you. It's got you inspired. It's got you turned on. Somebody says, how come you're up so early? Say, if you were headed where I'm headed, you'd be up early too. If you were going to meet who I'm going to meet, you'd be up early. It was going to stack up for you like it's stacking up for me, you'd be getting. Here's some more time management. In the study, what we call majors and minors. You pick up the phone. Here's what you must say when you pick up the phone. Is this a major conversation or a minor conversation? If it's minor, a few pleasantries and you're done. If it's major, maybe you've got to make a few notes. So here's the next one. Important conversations, make an agenda before you make the call. Just jot down a little agenda. It's so easy now to just talk out of your head. If you ever hear a conversation like this, so let's see, there was something else. See, you don't look that swift. I can't think of it right now. I'll call you back. See, you look a little incompetent. Let's see, there was something. It escapes me right now, really. So we got this. Now make an agenda before you make a call if it's an important call. That saves you all kinds of stuff. So what's major, what's minor? Now here's the key on this. Don't major in minor things. If you take up major time to do minor things, I'm telling you, you'll be behind the curve constantly. What's major time and what's minor time? And if you took a look, if you're in sales and you took a look at a week, you'd say, my gosh, I'm spending 90% of my time on the minor stuff and so little time on the major stuff. In the presence of how many hours? In the presence of, in my day. How many hours in the presence of during my sales week? Because the time that really counts is in the presence of majors and minors. Don't mistake movement for achievement. It's easy to get faked out by being busy. Guy comes home at night all exhausted, falls in the chair and says, oh, I've been going. Here's the big question. Doing what is not the going. Some people are going, and they're doing figure eights. Progress is small. So don't mistake movement for achievement. You know, concentration. I had to learn this all those years ago. I'm in the shower trying to compose a letter. And it turns out to be a strange letter. So here's what I learned: to save the work till you get to the office. Get the work till you get to the work. Don't try to get to the office on the way to work. On the way to work, enjoy the way in, the shower, enjoy the shower, then go to work. When you get to work, I found this to be helpful. Concentration. Here's another big one. Learn to say no. I'm telling you, in such a social society we have now, it's so easy to try to be a nice person saying yes to everything. Find yourself overloaded. You know, you've got to call and make the, well, gosh, you know all the time it takes to back out of something that you should have said yes to quickly. Here's what might be better. I don't think so, but if that changes, I'll call you. Little things you can use not to overcommit yourself. My friend Ron Reynolds says, don't let your mouth overload your back. It's a good one. Now here's a big one on time management. When you work. When you play. Don't mix the two. Don't work at play. I used to take my family to the beach and I would bring my briefcase. I learned not to do that. Or at the beach, I'm saying I should be at the office. I should be at the office. So now my family's upset because I'm at the beach and I'm thinking office. Now when I'm at the office, I'm thinking, I got to get my family to the beach. So things are not going too well at the office because I'm thinking beach, and things are not going too well at the beach because I'm thinking office. Here's what I learned to teach. Be at the beach. At the office, be at the office. When you work. When you play, play. Don't mix the two. Don't work at play. Now here's one of the most important ones. Don't play at work. Work is too serious. But I'm telling you, you've got to be serious about work because you're parting with a piece of your life for the work you do. Your work costs you a piece of your life. Serious business, not green, not unhappy, but serious. Here's another key phrase. All work is good. You may not like your job, but if it's the stepping stones to get you to where you want to go, you've got to appreciate your job. You don't have to have a passion for your job. Here's the ultimate passion. The passion for incredible success in every department of my life. That's the passion. But don't look down on some menial job you have to do to finally get you to where you want to go. No job is menial, no job is not. No, every job is noble training, life or pay, making a contribution to society. Next, analyze how you are, and if you have some weaknesses, if it doesn't seem like you can change, here's the key. Get it covered? I used to keep promising myself, I'll keep the books, keep the books, keep the books. Finally, I gave that up. And back then, it only took me an extra $50, $60 a month for some accountant to keep the books. As I know I'm going to save the $50, you can't believe what I started losing in productivity because I tried to save the $50. So the key is a lot of time you can stay like you are, but just make sure you get it covered. Next, beware of the telephone and all other systems of communication, especially the telephone at home and systems of communication at home. And here's one of the best lines I've got for you for the weekend. All communication systems serve you, but don't let them intrude. Here's the next one. Read all of the books. You know, I've only got a few notes here on time management, but if you've got some particular challenges, you run a big organization, big corporation, you've got some challenges, there's plenty of books. Now, here's what's next. Just be more alert to the things that might be stealing your time. Here's why capital. You can't let someone steal your seed corn. You can't let someone steal your capital, and you can't let someone steal your time. You must designate your time, and some of the time that you designate, you must not let anyone steal. Casual time, you might let someone intrude and steal a little bit. And take a little bit, but not serious time. Next, one of the great time management savers is to learn to ask questions up front. Sometimes you talk to somebody for an hour, and then you ask questions and find out if you would have asked those questions up front, you could have saved yourself an hour. Asking questions up front helps you to get to the problem. Now, but if you just launch into some discourse, you might waste 30 minutes, waste an hour, when here's what you should have been talking about. After you finished an hour, you say, John, what's really the problem? He said, well, it's something personal. See, that's what you should have been talking about this whole. Now here's the last one. Thinking on paper, and that's to keep a journal. One of the things I'm known for around the world, have been now for 39, 40 years, is keeping the journal. Now my journal is not necessarily like a diary. It might be part diary. And I'm flying over Ireland and write down a few little things that impressed me. Today I met this person, what an extraordinary event. Today, the sun. I conducted this seminar in Rome. Thousands of people stood up and sang for me. I've got a little bit of a diary in there. But here's what primarily your journal is for: collecting good ideas. Journalists to collect good ideas on your health, good ideas for your business, good ideas for your future, good ideas for time management. Because I used to take notes on pieces of paper and tore off the corners and backs of old envelopes and restaurant placemats, and I threw all this stuff in the drawer. It did not serve me well. I finally learned to get a bound copy, right, and just keep a journal. If I was here, I had my journal. I'd be taking notes, right, these 2 days in my journal. Now, if you're caught without your journal, you just take the notes. When you get back home, put those notes in your journal. Throw the paper away, because we don't usually go through paper to review. But see, my journals now make up a significant part of my own library. Here's what's next to leave behind, and that's your library. The books that changed your life, the books that changed your health, the books that rescued you from oblivion. Well, the books that you passed on to other people, they were so exciting for you. The books that made you financially independent, the books that developed your leadership, the books that gave you wisdom to ponder when things were tough, the books that got you through the winter, the books that helped you to plant in the spring and the harvest in the fall. What treasure to leave behind. If you do that, here's what's for sure. So your books will be more valuable than your furniture.